Welcome back to this Monsieur YouTube channel. Today we are working on the Mark II 3.6 race car. Finally doing an upgrade that I've wanted to do for years. One of the guys locally, his car, he decided to part out. So today I have drive shaft shop level 3 axles. These are supposed to be good to like 500 or 600 horsepower or something like that. So theoretically we should never break them. They have plenty of passes on them. They're used, but it's better than buying new. This is the axle kit that retains like OEM stuff to where if you have 100mm axle cups with bolts, that's what these go to. So if you have an O2J, you can put 100mm axle cups in it. If you have an O2A, it already comes with 100mm axle cups, so these just bolt right in. So it's just like OEM axles, think of it like that. They also upgrade you to a much bigger center section. So this is probably where you get most of your strength, so you have to change the hubs. These are not drilled for speed sensor, but with the Fuel Tech, I just use the speed sensor off the transmission, and I do have OEM speed sensors in the rear. So I have speed sensors front and rear, so it's not a problem. We're not worried about it. But you can see this is an OEM one that I snapped, and we're gonna get a much stronger axle, and this will allow us to do a lot better 60 foots. All motor racing is pretty much all in the 60 foot. You can't just turn boost up and go faster out the back. We have been able on the stock axles to do 168 60 foots really consistently. With these, we should be able to bump the tire pressure down a lot, and that'll give us a better grip, and it'll help with us spinning, because right now I'm spinning at the top of first gear and I'm spinning through the 60 foot as well. I'm gonna be bumping down in tire pressure and maybe even lowering RPM, because we want this thing to just hook and go. You'll need some specialty tools. I'll show you those in a minute. Basically, you can just go rent this stuff from the parts store. You don't have to buy it. You need a slide hammer, you need a hub puller, and then you need a bearing installer. Theoretically, you could reuse that, like after you take it out. The inner races, they always get stuck to the hub. If that's the case, usually the bearing's bad, so I just replace them. These are brand new fags.
Stop!
You don't believe me? It's like anything else. Pull wheels, pull the brakes, get left with just the hub, put the slide hammer on, slide hammer the hubs out. Then you can use the press tool, press the bearings out, press new ones in, and it'll be good to go. And just obviously pull an axle. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but by the end of this, we should be able to do 1.5s, maybe even 1.4 60 foots, depending if the car cooperates with us. Pop the rotor off.
That's good, that's good.
So basically what you do is you take one of these, you figure out which one fits your lug pattern. So let's take this one. Then you just take the slide hammer. This is what I was talking about with that race. So it pulled out of the bearing. Circlip into there, into this groove. There's also one in the back, but I'm not sure if we have to take it out right now. That's out. We just have to figure out which one of these inners fits, you know, the race, and then you'll set it up accordingly. You'll have this in the front with a bigger plate on it to kind of help you pull. You want to pull the bearing out, so this will be on the front right now, and you'll have a tool on the back, and this will go all the way through, and you just crank it down. You're supposed to do this all by hand, but if it's your own tool, just blast it. And there's the junk bearing. You got to reset up stuff to push the bearing back in, because obviously you need a different set of these. Now is when you make sure that that circlip's in the back. Show it. Have this flat side in, so that's in like that. push it all the way in. Be careful because you're only running it into a circlip, so you just stop, recheck. If you have to, adjust just by hand with a big ratchet, and then as long as you have enough room to put that circlip in totally, you're good to go. Looks like it's all the way in, and we should be good to go. Putting the hub in, so this is going to be pushing through, and what it'll want to do is kick the inner race out. You have to hold against this inner race. This will go on the flat side on the back, and as you squeeze it together, you're holding the back inner race, and the front inner race is going to be pushed in, so it'll be nice and good and you won't have any problems with it. This one's easy enough that you can just do by hand, and I'd rather do it by hand because this is the one that you can really mess up. So just crank it in and you'll pretty much know when it seats. So there it is right there. Feels good, feels snug. And then now if there is any bit of, like it's out any bit, when you put the axle in, the axle is gonna just basically do what this is doing, and you just tighten it up so it's good to go. It seems like these DSS axles are made for Mark II control arms. It's really weird. One thing I just never noticed is that a Mark III 2-liter and a Mark II, any of them, they all look exactly the same, except for one important thing. The Mark III one is about 1 inch wider. This is a Mark III control arm. That is a huge amount. And it's so much of an amount, in fact, that when I tried to put the axle in, the axle would not go into the hub because it was 1 inch further out. So of course I had to take it all apart, had to swap the control arm. So now it's a welded one, so I mean technically it's stronger, but now you can see axle goes all the way in. There's no problems. See, axle all the way in, ball joint right there, so that's good to go. But then that presents another issue, is that now that it's 1 inch further, now I need a tie rod that's 1 inch in further. What can you do when you get aftermarket parts? They just don't fit. Gotta figure it out. If you ever find yourself in this situation, remember that a Mark II and a Mark III control arm, they are different widths, but they look exactly the same. You really cannot tell the difference between them two. Same sway bar mount, same size bushings, same look. It's just right here, this gap's a little wider. So we're on the home stretch of the axles now. I did wind up having to go get Mark II tie rods, and they are about 1 inch shorter, just like the axles were 1 inch shorter. I had to get 1 inch shorter control arms. Had to get 1 inch shorter tie rods now. Here's the 2-liter Mark III, looks the same. This starts with a 1HO. Mark II starts with a 191. It's about 1 inch length difference. Hopefully at the end of this video, I will show you guys at least a launch with this at the track. This has been like a 2-week ordeal getting these axles in, but it's for a very good reason. We're going to an event next weekend called Street Wars at Cecil County, and we want to be pretty competitive in the class for racing. I did have to do another alignment, obviously, because it's a shorter tie rod. Everything was whacked out. I had to recamber everything. If you're ever doing this stuff, you can do it with just toe plates, which Jamie's putting away now. We usually dial in until we have an 1/8 inch of towed in, because then when you accelerate, your wheel kind of wants to open up, and then that locks it at 0. And then the same thing with camber. Camber always has to be done first. You want that at like 1.5 degrees. So then when the car lifts up, you know, it's accelerating. So as it lifts up, it kind of goes positive. So you want negative camber in the beginning, and then when you accelerate to go positive. That way you have the most contact patch on the ground. So all that's done. Everything's been double checked. There's the new axles in, and yeah, everything clears. You did see that I had to cut the little dong off of the sway bar so it didn't hit the boot. It was rubbing. You know, this was a lot more involved than I thought it was going to be. But now for the last thing, you have to lower it on the ground, put the slick on, and just ensure that nothing's going to rub or need clearancing or spacers or anything like that, so we can just go and race.